The new 2.0 has now been released and it's a ball I'm already starting to really like. This is Hammer's newest attempt to create a urethane-like motion but without actually being urethane. This is to combat the new urethane restrictions, but the question is whether or not they've come close to creating a urethane-like ball that will be a genuine urethane replacement. I think they have, and I talked about this in my main review video that I did, but in this video I'm going to be focusing more on a comparison. Firstly, a comparison of the 2.0 to the blue, but I'm also going to be directly comparing the 2.0 to the Hammer Purple Solid Reactive. But let's start with the comparison with the blue and the 2.0 and find out how much of an improvement the 2.0 really is. Now, the 2.0 has a really nice shape to it and it's very close to urethane, and it definitely has a different shape to the blue. I love the blue. However, where it came into its own was on drier lanes. That's where the ball stood out. The blue was a great house shot ball, and it was a great ball. There were some problems with it, and the main one was that when there was oil on the lanes, it didn't really work. And in particular, on some sports shots, you would just get too much over-under, and that's because it acted more like a reactive than it did a urethane. Yes, it did have a urethane-like shape, but I felt personally that it still leaned too much towards being a reactive. Now, when you combine that with the issue where the blue lane shined quite quickly, you just had a ball that unfortunately on some shots just didn't really work. And it meant that it wasn't really a viable urethane replacement. Now, all of that said, I still think the blue is a really great ball, but it just was more niche, I would say. 2.0, to me, works a lot more like a urethane does, and that's exactly what Hammer were trying to do. So from that point of view, it's an improvement. The 2.0 has that urethane motion. However, that being said, it's strong enough that you can play any part of the lane. And one big difference the 2.0 has compared to the blue is that the 2.0, I felt you could create quite a bit of angle and still strike. Whereas with the blue, when you got more angle, unless you were on a very dry lane, you tended to leave corner pins. So let's now talk about the actual reaction of both balls, and quite simply, the blue felt more like a reactive than it did urethane. The 2.0 has far more of a urethane feel to it, which is obviously the purpose. So from that point of view, I think it's a big improvement. I love the shape and the motion of the 2.0. It's a stronger cover and you can definitely feel it when using it, but I would say it felt earlier rather than stronger on the back end, and that meant you still get a very smooth and consistent motion. So to summarize, the 2.0 is far more like a urethane than the blue was, which means, in my opinion, the 2.0 is going to be a lot more versatile. I think you're also going to be able to use the 2.0 for a lot longer, potentially even whole blocks, whereas with the blue, that wasn't necessarily the case. You would normally have to get out of the blue after a little while because it would just start to skid and leave you corner pins. But from what I can see, the 2.0 I think will last longer because it just has that much more of a urethane type feel to it. So when comparing the two, I can just say that the goal from Hammer was obviously to create a urethane light ball without being urethane, and they have 100% done that. When you use the 2.0, you know exactly what you're going to get. There's no surprises here, I don't think. Well, the only surprise is how well it hits and the fact that you can play pretty much any part of the lane. But in terms of what is described, I feel the 2.0 is right on the money. So now we've compared those two, let's look at the 2.0 versus the Purple Hammer Reactive. Might be a bit of a niche comparison, but I thought it would be interesting still to compare these two because they have a lot of similarities. They have the same core, the same differential. In fact, the only difference really is the cover. The 2.0 has a new cover stock and the Purple Reactive has a reactive solid cover. I actually only very recently picked up the Purple Reactive and I really love it. It's a lot stronger than I expected. I went with a pin down drilling and I'm glad I did because otherwise I think it would have been a bit too much. Just so you can compare, the 2.0 has a pin up drilling. Obviously the main difference is the purple is definitely stronger and the motion is that of a reactive. It goes long and then comes storming back. whereas the 2.0 has that earlier hook and overall that urethane type motion. Now I stood in exactly the same place, looked at the same target when using these balls. The main difference, as you might be able to tell, is that I had to increase my speed when using the reactive. I didn't mind this because it allowed me to attack the shot a lot more and I knew it would still come back. I couldn't do that so much with the 2.0. I had to keep my speed up, but I felt I needed to lay off it a little bit and let the ball almost float down there. With the purple reactive, I could really get into it and it would just come storming back and demolish the pins. Because of that, I felt I left more single pins on this lane with the 2.0. Now, of course, this is just one lane, one type of pattern that I was bowling on, and on something else, I probably would have played more on the outside part of the lane. But regardless of that, the purple reactive is definitely a lot stronger. When I took this out of the bag to test these two, I started a new game with the purple reactive and I shot 278. Now this pretty much sums up the success I've had with this ball so far. Like I said, I only drilled this up about a month ago and it's been so good for me so far. I've had so much success playing this same kind of shot, keeping it quite straight with a decent speed, and it just holds and crushes the pins. I feel I can't always play this sort of shot with some other reactives because I would get quite a lot of over-under, but I think with this LED core, it just keeps it all very controllable. I feel like the only time I miss with this ball is when I personally make a mistake and make a bad shot. So in terms of a comparison, it does feel the purple is a stronger version of the 2.0, so you definitely could have both. In fact, the purple becomes too much ball when you could realistically then step into the 2.0. I would say that actually the blue is closer to the purple reactive because of the fact that the blue had more of that reactive motion to me. So what can we take away from all of this? Well, it was announced the blue has been discontinued and it was available at a very good price. So if you can still pick one up, I'd say it's definitely worth it. But if you're looking for a ball that acts just like urethane, then definitely go with the 2.0. As for the purple reactive, this was a really underrated ball that I think quite a few people probably missed out on. I absolutely love this ball and I'd love to see something else like this released at some point. And so that brings us to an end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed this one. As I mentioned before, I'm starting now to do more of these type of ball review videos and comparison videos. So if there's any other balls you'd like me to review or any balls you'd like me to compare, let me know in the comment section below. And if you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button below. Well, that's going to do it from me for today. And as always, thank you bowling fans and see you all next time.